Okay, welcome back. We're in a brand new scene here, 3ds Max, and we're going to start to get into creating objects and creating primitives and things like that and get you used to doing that. Okay, so the first thing we want to do is make sure the perspective view is active and it's highlighted in a yellow border. Middle mouse button, click on the perspective view if you haven't already. Hit Alt and W to maximize the perspective viewport. So let's go ahead and see how we can create objects. There's two ways we can create objects in 3ds Max. We can use the main command panel over here and use the create panel within that to create our first object, or we can go to the main menu under the create menu here and we can create objects from here as well. So we can go to the standard primitives menu. We can start to create primitive boxes, cones, spheres, cylinders, things like that. We can also go to AEC objects and we can create walls. We can create different types of doors, windows, staircases, and so on and so forth. And we have access to a lot more objects such as lights and cameras, for example. We can also create objects from the create panel within the main command panel area over here. So the first panel here is the create panel, and if you hover your mouse over it, you get a little tooltip that lets you know it's the create panel. Okay, we have different objects we can create. We have shapes, lights, cameras, helpers, space warps, and systems. Let's go back to geometry. In the geometry set, we have a different menu for different things. We have standard primitives, we have extended primitives, we have compound objects, we have doors, windows, architectural objects. These AEC extended objects are architectural objects. We have stairs as well. Okay, so let's see how we can create one of these things. Let's create a simple door. So what we'll do is we'll go to doors, and now we get three different doors we can choose from. We can create a pivot door, a sliding door, or a bifold door. Let's create a simple pivot door first. So click on pivot, and now you get all these options that pop up. Now your mouse cursor in the viewport changes from the regular mouse arrow icon to this sort of crosshair icon. So just click anywhere you want, hold down the mouse button, the left mouse button, let go of the mouse button where you want the door to end right there, so the width of the door. Then move the mouse button to get the depth of the door, so we won't make it too thick, we'll make it up to about here. Click the left mouse button again, then move the mouse button upwards to give this door some height. So I'll left click right there, and there we go, the door is done. Right click the mouse button to go ahead and go back to and end the creation process. Okay, so here's our door. How do we modify this door? Well, it's pretty simple. We have a modify panel over here. If we click on it, we get different options for modifying the door. So we can modify the height of the door, for example, so we can come in here and change the height of the door to whatever we want. We can change the width to make the door skinnier. We can change the depth so it's not so thick. We can also choose double doors. So now this is going to look like double doors, and it's a little bit hard to see. So this brings up something else that I want to talk to you about, which is the different visibility modes in the 3ds Max viewports. We can view objects in different shading modes. Right now, we're using the standard smooth and highlight shading mode. So how do we change shading modes? Well, there's a couple of ways. The long way and the short way. Short ways to use shortcut keys, and I'll show you those in a moment. First, let's look at the long way. If we go over here to where it says perspective in the viewport, the truth is that perspective is not just there to tell you it's perspective, it's actually a hidden menu. If you right click on top of the word perspective, you open up a hidden submenu that gives you access to the different shading modes in 3ds Max. So right now, whatever has a check mark next to it means that that's the currently active shading mode. So right now we have a check marks next to smooth and highlights, which is why we can see this the way that we do. We can switch to wireframe mode, so now we see the wireframe that makes up the object. We can switch to other and select different types of modes. For example, hidden line mode shows you the object's wireframe as well as the object itself in a flat shaded view. We can go back to other and we can show objects in bounding boxes, and a bounding box is simply going to show this wireframe bounding box around the entire surface of the object. This helps for when you have dense, complicated scenes and your viewport is starting to slow down. You can use this bounding box mode to pretty much go ahead and optimize your viewport so you can move around quicker. So let's go back to smooth plus highlights. Okay, we can have smooth plus highlights and activate the wireframe on top of that. So let's go back to the menu, and what we're going to do is we're going to click on edged faces. So if you click on edged faces, now you see the wireframe of the object composited right on top of the object itself. So we get to see this in wireframe and shaded view. Okay, now this is a great way of being able to see this a lot easier. Now you notice that there's these selection brackets around the object. So if I deselect the object, you don't see any selection brackets. As soon as I select the object, you see these sort of selection brackets around the corners of the object, here, up here, in the lower left and the lower right. If you don't like the selection brackets, you can turn them off easily. Just hit J on the keyboard and that'll toggle the selection brackets off. If I hit J again, it'll bring them back up. So I'm going to turn them off. So you can see when I turn double doors off, it's a single door. When I turn double doors on, it's two doors. I can also activate the open parameter here. So I can choose if this door is going to be open. So you can see I can open it all the way to 180 degrees, or I can close it all the way to 0 degrees and have it just simply closed or locked or whatever. So it's a pretty neat way to create doors inside of 3ds Max. We can change several different things here. I'm not going to go too far into this. You can experiment with this on your own to see what kind of different doors you can make or what kind of doors you might like for your specific project. Okay, so we can say add some panels here. We can add some panels this way, so now we have some crisscrossing panels on the doors, so on and so forth. So that's how you can create objects in 3ds Max. So that's going to cover it for this video, and the next video will continue working in 3ds Max and continue chipping away and showing you the different features of 3ds Max and how to get started with it.